In this video, we will learn about how to create new records, new objects in your application database. For this purpose, we will be creating a new endpoint. Let's start creating that one. Let's create new user, and the endpoint will be a post method, and it will have a path of users. And we will also create a new service, rooted service called create new user. Okay, before getting into the details of this service, let's go to the data model, because I already defined the user model, where you've got the first name, last name, email, password. Some of the fields are mandatory. Okay, for example, the first name is mandatory, last name is mandatory, email is mandatory, gender is not, image URL is not, join date is mandatory, city is not, last login is mandatory, and so on. We also have some dynamically calculated transient fields. In this case, for example, this full name is concatenation of first name and last name. The last login, let me say join date, is the now. It takes the current date and time. Okay, and for last login, we can also do the same actually. Whenever we create the account, whenever we create the user, we can mark the last login as now. Okay. Let's go back to our endpoint. This is the endpoint that we created, and let's get into the service associated with this endpoint. So there are two nodes, specific nodes, that you can use in AutoJect to create records, create objects in the database. The first one is the create single object, and the second one is the create multi objects. As its name implies, this basically gets an input object, like a user object, input user object, creates it in the database and returns the created object. This one, on the other hand, gets a list of objects, like a list of user objects, multiple objects, creates all of them. If there are no errors, validation errors for them, then returns the created list as output. Okay, we will start with the easy one, the create single object. But before doing that one, we need to customize our start node, because in order to create the user objects, we need to get a user object from our endpoint body. Okay, request body. So I configured it like the user. We will get a single object there. So the next thing we need to do is we need to use a get object value. Okay, and connect this one to this one. And from the request object, we need to get the body of the request. Okay. Then using that body, request body, we need to move it to here, connect it to here, and say that, hey, we will be creating a user record, user object in the database. It doesn't require a parent ID. If the object that we plan to create in the database was a submodel, member of a submodel collection, then you need to provide the parent object identifier in here. But for this case, we don't need it, because user objects are a top level model. And finally, we can return back the created object. Okay, that's it. So let's test this. I've got already an environment where my application is already deployed, and I will launch the test panel here. Okay, my new endpoint is here. Let me check. API key is there. So I need to insert this, provide these input parameters. Okay, let me do something strange. Okay, let me empty that one. I'm not passing any kind of inputs here. Let's see what happens. Okay, so AutoJect has raised some errors. What are the errors? For example, first name, it's a required field, you cannot leave it empty. Again, last name, required field. Email, required field. Password, required field, and so on. So the AutoJect ran the validations in the input provided. In this case, the input provided was empty. If you go to the service logs, you can clearly see that one. For example, in the body, as you see, we don't provide anything. And as an input to the create single object, we provide an object without any values. So the validations run, and validation finds that the required parameters are not provided. That's why it's raising an error. Okay, let's go back here. First name, let's put here John. Okay, Adams. Email, john@email.com. Passwords, pwd 1234, whatever. Option, mail. Okay, image link, I will keep it missing right now. City, I will not be providing the city information. I will not be providing the join date and login date information. Okay, let's see what will happen. I will not be also providing the reminder sent. Okay, let's see what happens if I hit the send button. Okay, the object is created in the database. First name is John, yes. Last name Adams, yes. Email there. Password, encrypted password here. Gender, male. As you can see, the join date and the last login date are the current date and time. Because why it is that one? Because for the last login we've got a default value expression. Even if we didn't provide the value for that field when creating that field in the database, AutoGIC used the default values for those values. Again, the same for this join date. What else do we have? We have got full name. Okay, full name is not stored in the database. It's not a permanent field, but when we create the object, it has got a default value expression of first name concatenated with last name in the middle a space. Then I can see that, hey, John Adams is also concatenated. And the reminder sent, again, reminder has a default value of false. Okay, so this is the way that you create the objects in the database. Another version of this one is you can use the second version of this node, which is the multi-case. Let me create a new endpoint actually for this one. Create multiple users. Again, a post one. The path will be users, and I will be /multi. Okay, the rooted service will be a new service. Create multiple users. Okay, let's create this one. Let's go to the new service. Similarly, for the single user creation case, I need to customize the start node, saying that, hey, I will be getting user objects as input, but in this case I will not be getting a single user object. I will be getting multiple user objects in a list, in an array of objects. Okay, so what next I need to do? Similarly, the same thing. I need to get the body of the request. Body. In this case, at this point, I get the list of user objects that needs to be created in the database. Then if I drag and drop to create multi objects, connecting that one to here, then selecting, okay, I will be creating the records in the user database, users model. Then as a response, I can return back the created objects. Okay. So let's go back to our test panel. Okay, this is the first one, this is the second one. As you can see, automatically AutoGIC provided the template for the input that you need to send. Okay, it's an array. This square brackets means that it's array of objects. I need to send an array of objects. Okay, let's put this one here. Maybe I can use the same data here, slightly change that thing. Copy paste that thing here, copy paste that thing here. Mary Adams, let's say. Mary, okay, female. Then Mike Adams, Mike, again male. Okay, so this time we will be creating two entries. By the way, it gives a syntax error here. The reason for that one is that this is not a correct JSON file. Because there is an extra comma in here, I need to delete that thing. Okay, then if I hit send, let's see what happens. Okay, so we created these two entries in the database for our new users. We can also go back to see the list of the users that we created. Okay, let me run this thing. This basically gets the first 10 records from our users model sorted by the creation date, descending creation date. So Mike, Mary, John, all three of them are there. Okay, so we successfully created users. One important thing that you need to take into consideration is that you need to pass the inputs objects. Okay, the one way to do that one is that you need to provide these parameters or the new users data in the body of your request. Another way to do that thing is the following. Actually, let me go back to the create new user, the single version one. Let's assume that you could not able to send, for some reason you could not able to send the request, the user data in the body of the request. So what you need to do, in any case, you need to provide the user object that's connected to this one in order to create that thing in the database, but you couldn't able to, you didn't send the input data through the start nodes, I mean through the request body. So what you can do, this is an advanced topic by the way, but I just wanted to mention about that thing. So what you need to do is that you need to create a new object. This creates an empty object, okay? Empty object. And you specify the type of the object. I'm creating a user object. This doesn't create the object in the database. This creates the object in memory, okay? Within the execution context of the service. So you can say that, okay, this is the object, this is the user object that I will be creating. Let me set the information about this object, right? I'm picking up the mandatory ones, okay? So let's put here Sarah at email.com, first name Sarah, last name Adams, password, okay, some random stuff there. Okay, so we created that one. There are some validation here. Let me see what are the error messages. Endpoint link does not have any valid model information. Does not. Let me see what happens here. Okay, I get the body. I don't need to get the body actually. I just need to put here the value. Yeah, okay, it's working right now. So then I need to connect this one to here. On the fly, I created a user object in memory in the context of my service, and then directed that object to the create single object. Let's see what happens if I run this thing. Okay, this is the multiple, this is the single user case. As you see, there is no body parameter because we turned it off. Let's see what happens. As you can see, the user object is also created in the database. If I fetch the users again, yep, Sarah is also created there. So this is another way to, on the fly, during the execution of the service, to set information to create a temporary user object, set its parameters and so on. Of course, you can use any expression you want, any function you want when setting the field values of the user. That's all. Thanks a lot for watching.